Now, I would like to demonstrate the whole process, and then we can go through that. And this, it's called the phobia process, but it will work for any unpleasant experience. It's just that phobias are the sort of the star billing, because they're the most intense. Now, earlier you talked about this thing that you have. Does anybody else have a phobia? You have one. What's yours?
It just started this summer, and it's really strange for me because I've never had phobias. Being in a trapped place, like an elevator, actually being in an elevator, and just happened recently, a week ago, I was in an elevator at the beach, and it stopped between floors. And I noticed the workman working on it like an hour before. So I didn't think. I went in the elevator and hit the button and nothing happened, and then it just dropped. And the thrill of dropping was pretty exciting. And then it hit me. It's like I'm stuck.
Okay.
And I was leaving the beach, so I had a bottle of wine with me and all my stuff. And I thought, oh great, I could just drink myself out of the It was just awful. All of the things that phobia gives you.
Yeah.
You lose your brain cells, rapid heartbeat. You just totally disassociate in your life.
Okay, great.
And I'm right there, and I'm like, where is this coming from?
Okay, great. Would you be willing to demonstrate?
Aren't you guys getting tired?
Huh?
You want me to go up there again?
Yeah.
Oh, there's welcome, thank you.
And I'll get yours too. But hers is a little more like a standard phobia, and that's why I want to use hers. Yours is more anticipatory into the future. Okay? So, usually, phobias can be of the future, but usually they're of the past. And usually they have a historical origin. In this case, you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Just recently.
Strange.
Yeah. Okay. So, I want to make sure I go through this systematically, so I'm going to cheat and look at my notes. Okay. You learned to be phobic in this particular one situation, right? And it made sense. You were in danger. Part of you that is in charge of your safety and your welfare freaked out, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you learned this, notice, one trial learning, right?
I got it.
You got it. So we'll just utilize the same one trial learning to learn a new response, okay? Okay. So can you remember the original experience?
Yeah.
Right now. Don't need to talk about it. Just go kind of back to the original experience. Okay, that's enough. Good, that's fine. Open your eyes. Look around. See the people. And you're calibrating, right? To her facial changes and so on. And this is something you want to do very briefly. You just want to get a hint of it. You don't need to get the whole full-blown freak out. You just want to get enough of it that you can recognize it in the future. Okay, now close your eyes. Go into that movie theater. See yourself up on the screen, and that screen can is a still picture of could be anything actually initially, because we'll run a movie later. So initially it could be you in the garden or sitting at the breakfast table or something like that, with some picture of you up on that screen, as far away as you want it, as dim as you want it. And you're sitting in the audience, okay? And then imagine floating out of your body to a seat 20 or 30 seats behind, or up in the projection booth, something like that. Got that? Okay. Now, I'm going to give you the instructions, and I don't want you to do it until I tell you. I want you to watch a movie of that whole situation of going into the elevator and everything, clear to the end. So start just as you go into it. You're watching this movie over there. Not yet, but you're going to. And watch it clear to the end until you're out of the elevator and you're totally safe. And then stop the picture. And let me know when you've done that.
Okay, you want me to begin?
Now you can begin, yeah. Notice how she's spontaneously moving back this way. That's good. Keep your distance. That's fine. Let me know when you get to the end. Just stop it as a still picture. Okay? And now I want you to step into that picture so you're associated.
At the end.
At the end. Okay. Everything's fine. And then run it backwards in color.
Okay.
Really fast.
All right.
Okay? Okay. Now if you may imagine, think about being in that elevator again.
Okay.
What's it like?
It's nowhere near as intense.
But there's still some.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's still some.
Let's do the whole thing again then. So the picture in the movie in black and white till you get to the end, and then step into it at the end and backwards in color really fast. Take your own time as long as that last part is quick.
All right.
Okay? Now test again. Imagine being in the elevator again.
Wow. I'm okay.
It's okay now?
Yeah, I have a cell phone. And I did have a cell phone.
Okay. So you did have...
Help.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did have in the actual situation?
No. When we tested and I didn't go back into those feelings of panic,
yeah.
We tested, we did it again, it hit me. I had a cell phone, no need to get all upset. I could have called 911, the property manager, fire department.
You actually had a cell phone in the original experience?
In the original experience.
Okay. But you didn't think of it?
I thought of it, but I didn't have the action to use it.
Okay.
Because I was you're so frozen in your phobia, you can't move. But my mind was going, well, you have a cell phone. I don't care, I'm too scared.
Yeah. Shut up.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, let's test one more time. So imagine you're hanging out there in the elevator, it's stuck between floors. What's it like? Good opportunity to meditate, huh?
Yeah. See if my cell phone works.
Okay. Now, does she look different now?
Yeah, that's different.
Very, very different, right?
Wow.
And we only got a taste of it before. I interrupted her before. She could have gotten even more into that state. But I didn't want her to feel bad. I just wanted to have enough that I could recognize when it's different. Do you have any questions of me?
No. You did answer a question because when we had done that exercise, you collectively asked the class to not go to a phobic state.
Right.
So I really couldn't quite get why we were doing it because it wasn't doing anything for me. But now, that exercise for a phobic state really worked. Now, the question was, what was the purpose? Well, I just answered it.
I just want to teach the process.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
If you teach a process that's too complex and there are too many steps, people can just get lost. I remember the first time I learned to drive a car and somebody told me, well, first you put in the clutch and then you shift gears and then you let out put in the gas just as you let out the clutch. And I was, I don't know how to do that. Now I do it totally automatically and unconsciously. Well, actually what happened, people learn sequences. And as it happened, I was driving a tractor, and just as he was talking about letting out the clutch, the tractor almost died, so he reached over and there's a manual accelerator, and he went vroom, so the tractor went vroom like that. I learned that too. So just before I let out the clutch, and vroom like that, and let out the clutch, and of course it jerked and bucked and so on. So it's easier for people to learn small pieces of things, and then when you have a small piece and another small piece, and you've learned those already, then it's easy to put them in a larger piece. And now it makes sense. So that's why I chunk down things this way. Okay, do you have any questions of her?
I have one.
Okay.
I would like it if just to see how she would do if she did not have the resource of a cell phone.
Okay.
And she could still be okay.
I don't think so. No, that was my safety, even in my subconscious.
Shut up.
Okay.
This is a conscious mind talking, right? Now, close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Okay.
And imagine you're stuck between floors in an elevator, and you don't have a cell phone.
It's bad.
It is. Really? I'm surprised. Okay. Then we need to do something else. Run that movie of yourself going through that freak out.
Okay.
And you don't have a cell phone this time. And then you step in at the end, and then you run it backwards and color really fast.
Okay.
And what's it like now? Let's test now.
It's okay.
It's okay. Doesn't look like it's a lot of fun, though.
No, it's not.
Okay, let's do it again.
All right.
And this time, remember, pull your head back. And your top, yeah, like that. And your head, and chin down. Yeah, and then back. Yeah, about like that. Yeah. Something like that. As you're doing the full thing.
It's better.
Still not great?
No, it's not. But it's better. It's not that full-blown hallucination, but it's manageable.
Okay. Well, I would rather it be even better than manageable. I mean, I'm glad it's manageable, but I'm greedy. I want to go for the gusto.
Okay.
Can you say anything about your experience that would give me a hint about what anything else I might do?
The experience is similar to where you're in a state where you don't have options or choices.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I don't have a cell phone, and I have looked in the elevator cab, and there's no red phone to call outside. So you are literally stuck. You are stuck physically.
Sure.
You are stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, now what?
Does she need to go back into the movie theater? I'm just curious.
So then I'm thinking, well, maybe I need to start yelling and pounding on the door.
Okay. Let me try a couple of things and see. I mean, his suggestion was, I've been kind of presupposing that you went back in the movie theater. Was that correct or
No,
not?
I have not.
Oh, okay, good. I'm sorry.
No, I did not. You didn't tell me to.
That's true. I goofed. Okay.
Okay.
So, go back in the movie theater first.
All right.
First, you see an innocuous picture of you up on the black and white up on the screen. And then you go back into the back seat. So you can see yourself in front, like you've seen that up there. And remember this posture, back like that. And maybe head back a little bit more. And not chin up, just straight back. Chin down a little bit. Not that, about like that. Somewhere in there. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, from that position, and maybe you can put your hands on the seat in front of you. Imagine that you're actually putting your hands on the seat in front of you, like that. In the movie theater. And then run that black and white movie. All the way to the end. And when you get to the end, you stop it as a still picture. Step into it and then run it backwards really fast.
Okay.
Okay?
I did that.
Okay. Is that any different?
The first part was back into that phobia, right? Playing in there, but then coming back alleviated a lot of that pressure.
Okay.
A lot of that intensity of emotion.
Okay. So now if you imagine being in an elevator.
Okay.
Without the cell phone.
Pardon me?
Without the cell phone, yeah.
Right. No, I'm...
Okay. That's good to remind. That's good.
Okay. Much better.
Much better now, huh? Okay. Well, that was my mistake. Thank you for pointing out that I was not specific enough. And it's an example. You can just leave out some little set of words and people will do something different. Sometimes you even use the right set of words and people will creatively interpret it as to mean something else. Okay, now do you have any questions of him? Usually it would generalize to any situation like that without the cell phone, with or without the cell phone, but didn't here, so we have to go back and do some more. And that's the importance of testing. You've got to test. You can't just run somebody through something and assume that it will work. You have any questions of her? Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, now, let me go through the process first, and then that'll sort out questions by the different steps. Although, I think you can have that over here. Oh, I forgot the end part. Let's see. Alicia, given that you had this experience with an elevator, you have some concerns about this, it would be wise to be cautious when entering elevators.
Well, I was thinking the same thing when I just sat back in my seat. I'm like, this is an opportunity to present itself now, to see if I'm really okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm still a little hesitant, but I won't know until I get in that situation.
You never know until you actually get into this. Is a real test. These are mind tests, and usually they work. But the real test is, of course, in the real life. And now, sometimes people have avoided this. You've been up and down elevators most of your life, probably. Sometimes people have not faced whatever they're phobic of for years and years and years, and so they really don't know anything about it. And that's when a caution is particularly appropriate. Here it's not so appropriate because you know about elevators, you've gone up and down in elevators and so on. But something you might think about the next time you're in an elevator is that there's plenty of air in there, and that even if there's no way to communicate, other people want to use the elevator. Pretty soon they're going to call up the supervisor and say, hey, this elevator's not working. So there's really, if the cables drop, then you're in trouble. But it dropped a little bit and then it caught. And they have all sorts of, I don't know if you know about this, but they have all sorts of automatic safety devices that are really foolproof. It's not electronic foolproof where if somebody Mickey Mouses the circuit. They're physical things. This was first demonstrated in the World's Fair in the early 20s, I forget, a long, long time ago. Automatic things that if the elevator starts to drop too fast, automatically things click in and jam, which is probably what you experienced. And so they do have those safety devices, and they really are foolproof. They're duplicated. They're mechanical. I mean, everything would have to go wrong for them to not work. Okay. Sometimes people need a little education about these things. Okay. First step is just general rapport. Hi, how are you? Whatever you need to do to introduce yourself. And this framing is kind of helpful at the beginning, that this is now a good time to look at your notes if you want to. You learned this in a one-step thing. Here it's quite obvious. Sometimes people don't know where they develop their phobias. They have a phobia, but they don't know what the initial experience was that created it. But you can still mention that probably they learned it in a one trial learning, and that you can use the same thing again. Then you establish the three-place dissociation. We've talked about that already. Do you have any questions at this point? And then maintaining that, you have them run the black and white movie forward, end with a still picture. Step into it, run it backwards in color, very fast. 1.5 seconds. I don't think anybody I know can really measure what is 1.5 seconds. But it gives them the idea. Not just 1 or 2 seconds, but 1.5 seconds. It sounds very precise. Not like having 2.3 children. And then you test, and testing and future pace at the same time. Imagine that you're back in that situation, or you're in a future situation of the same kind. That happens again. And calibrate, of course, you're calibrating up here to the phobic state, and then you're calibrating down here again. Is it different? And getting the verbal report as well. But just John Grinder used to say, all verbal reports should be taken as unverified rumor unless backed up by sensory-based experience. I don't know if you've heard that one before, but I like it. Any questions about the process?
So if it's a particularly traumatic situation for somebody, I guess like the other things, if they're sitting up there, you could also establish resource anchors that you could fire off if they really start to go into it, sort of thing. Or?
Yeah, if they start to go into it, we used to teach this with a bailout anchor or some kind of distraction. But if something like that would happen now, I'd just get them up and start walking them around and talking to them. I'd literally say, "Oh, come on, we need to go over here. Come." Right. And I'd literally just pull you out of your seat and distract you by my behavior now rather than trying to get an anchor ahead of time. But you can do that. You can think of some particularly resourceful state that the person has and get an anchor on their knee or something like that. You could do lots of things like that. I've had some people do this kind of thing where they really fall back into their phobia, and it usually hasn't taken very long to get them back out of it. Walk them around, talk to them, look them in the eye. I mean, come on, talk to me. Do you see me? Do you see me? You know, kind of get them back into the present moment rather than their past thing. Okay, good question though. Any other questions about this?
What's the sentence? Caution?
Oh, the caution at the end. If someone particularly had been let's say they've been phobic of snakes, and now you cure them. You don't want them walking up to a rattlesnake and saying, "Kitchi kitchi goo," you know, because they might bite you. So just talk to them a little bit about, be cautious. You haven't experienced this kind of context before, this animal or whatever it is. You need to be a little cautious. Remember, this part that gave you the phobia wanted to protect you from harm. We don't want to take that away. We just want to take out the freak-out response. So be a little cautious as you're learning about elevators, as you're learning about heights, or whatever it is a person was phobic of. There's a curious thing. Some people will say, I've had this phobia for as long as I can remember. Now, if you think about that, that's kind of a backwards way of saying I can't remember before I had the phobia. And then after you cure the phobia, often they will remember. Oh, I was in this situation, blah, blah, blah. And then they can tell you about the origin of it, but often they can't. Sometimes they can. They know they were in a horrible war situation or attempted rape or something like that, and they can remember it. But some people don't.
But the origin doesn't really matter, right?
No, it doesn't. Take a real bad example of it. Here I just used the original one because we knew about it. But you can say, think of the worst time you ever freaked out. Remember I mentioned this morning that if you get the worst, it'll tend to generalize to the whole category of experience.
So if somebody's afraid of climbing up a ladder to the top, you stick a ladder on the back of your house and have them climb it when you're done.
We've often done that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. We've done demonstrations for mental health groups and things like that. We've done that. My wife did one where they went and got a ladder and they put it up and she climbed up to the top of the ladder, totally happy.
I have a friend that has a real phobia of heights.
Uh-huh.
Not like parachuting or flying a plane, but climbing to the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
So much so that when he was holding the wet ladder for his wife to clean the windows, he lay in bed for a day sick.
Yeah. Yeah, these are they're very, very strong autonomic responses. They're very, very
He
powerful.
says there's no way that I can cure him.
Get him to bet you a large amount of money. No, do it ahead of time and say, what would it be worth? Yeah, you don't think I can do it, so you got nothing to lose, right? Make a deal.
Cost you a master track.
Charge by the change. Charge by the change instead of by the hour. Yeah. Well, we were demonstrating for a bunch of social workers once, and there was this gal who was phobic of closets, and that's great because it's easy to find a closet somewhere. So we found this water heater closet where there was barely room for someone to squeeze in kind of next to the big water heater. And there was one little light bulb in the ceiling. And initially she was maybe this far away, and she goes, that'll be fine. We wanted to find out ahead of time what would be a good test, not afterwards. And so after we did the process, we walked her over and she just looked at it, walked in, turned out the light, closed the door. Totally fine.
Wow.
That was a convincer for a lot of people. That was really great. But sometimes you can't test that easily. I don't have an elevator handy. I don't know if there's an elevator in town even. Does anybody know? Is there an elevator? I don't think so. So we'll have to wait. 2 weeks though.
Right.
You're going to report, right? Report into Tom or me, okay?
Will do.
Really?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a piece missing. Sometimes doesn't work. I worked with a gal once who had an elevator phobia, and it was an unusual one. She had just given birth. They'd kind of knocked her out with drugs. The 2 nurses wheeled her into the elevator on a gurney, and then the elevator doors closed, the lights went out. And the last thing this woman remembered as she's drifting off into drug-induced sleep was these 2 nurses screaming and pounding on the door. This is what nurses are for. And it didn't work at first. She walked over to an elevator and she's still very unpleasant. And I had to do some other stuff which I don't clearly remember, but I just kept working at it. And I think I built her an alternative reality where she wasn't drugged. Because when you're drugged, I mean, what can you do? You know, it affects your brain and that's it, pretty much. And there's a little variation in your attitude toward drugs, but we did get it eventually. Nothing works all the time. People are very complicated creatures. There can always be something else. There was once I failed miserably with a guy who I later determined was multiple personality. And there was some very, very deep divisions between parts of this person that I don't understand to this day, really. I have some ideas, but that did not work at all. In fact, made it worse. So, nothing always works, but this works very, very dependably, almost all the time. And it's a wonderful thing. You can, when you go into the exercise, we'll have a break in just a minute or two, and then go into the exercise, you can use it on any unpleasant past experience, just to learn the process. Do this in trios. Yeah?
You were talking about a lift. In fact, there is a lift up at the ski centre.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, up at Winter Park.
4 walls and clothes.
Elevator. Elevator, sorry.
I'm not volunteering.
You're not what?
I'm not volunteering for that.
You're not?
No. Go wait till it happens. Well, I'm not.
I would really be curious.
I'm glad you're curious.
Would you go if somebody went with you?
No.
Okay.
No, it'll happen. You know, I'm not going to solicit the experience.
Okay. Well,
No reason for that.
I can think of one.
Great.
Because if you test it now, we could do something about it if it doesn't work. That's one reason. If we do it now, then you can be comfortable then knowing that in the future everything will be fine, rather than having some concern about it still. So there's two.
I'll think about it.
Okay. Sure. And I'd be willing to go along too,
Okay. No, I appreciate
today
it.
or tomorrow, and
You
then.
know, you work with people with phobias. And it was a terrible experience. I've never
Sure.
been there before, and I'm
Yeah. Yeah, it was a real freak out.
total freak out.
Yeah. Yes.
And just a query, do you think it helps, Steve, if you have an auditory signal for the 1.5 seconds?
Oh, well, I usually do it just to kind of give somebody an idea of how long I think 1.5 seconds is. So I do this like that. It's kind of a little auditory anchor. And I like to go up at the end. There's sort of an implication of coming out of it at the end, rather than if I went, it wouldn't be quite as good. It's a little more congruent, I think, to have it go up at the end. Sure. Yeah.
Is that common for most people after you run them through this? They don't think it's really worked until you're
Oh, yeah.
faced with the situation.
Yeah.
Well, what it is I don't want to go there again. I mean, I worked there, and it's a fear. It was a very real fear to me at the time, and I'm like, why would I want to volunteer for that again? To volunteer for it.
Well, here's my reason, is that if you volunteered for it and you found out that it was totally okay, then you wouldn't have that concern or that wonder. You could even feel good about yourself of having made a particular change that was advanced your life and made you feel freer and more open.
I feel myself after doing it in the classroom. I'm okay.
Okay.
And I I need to think about it and let it sit, process.
Sure.
See
By
what
all
I
means,
feel.
your choice. I just offer encouragement.
Yeah, and yeah, if I would choose to do that, I would most definitely would like for you to come along.
Sure, happy to. I'm going to be up again next week, the last 3 days, and I'll be here tomorrow. So those times I'm available. Other times I'm not. Okay, any questions about what I want you to do? Take some unpleasant experience. Doesn't have to be a phobia. If you've got anything like a phobia, by all means go for it. This is the big gun for unpleasant experiences in the past. Milder unpleasant experiences you can do with change personal history or mapping across submodalities, a lot of things like that. But for the real freakouts, this is the one. This is the one that really works for great stuff, for real intense things. So I'd like you to know how to do it. Use any kind of content you want to. I'd like you to do this in threes so that you have the guide and the explorer and the other person who can give you clues on how you could do it a little different or a little better or next time or whatever. Give you feedback. Okay? So 10-minute break, and I think you might take, let's try for about 15 minutes each, so a total of 45 minutes, plus 10. 50. Okay, I'd like to say that you're an unusually attentive and hardworking group. Sometimes if people kind of don't get into exercises right away, you guys dive right in and go for it. It's wonderful. Do you have any questions about this? Yes, look at that, fast.
I have a question about...
That's what you call a pre-decision. He's already made a decision. He's just waiting for the chance to fire it off. Yeah.
When we had someone that was had some apprehension about flying, is the caution? What do you do with the cautionary note at the end, or do you?
Well,
You say the plane could fall apart, and you just
check out the pilot.
check the pilot.
Check his breath. That perhaps is not in order at that content. Incidentally, apprehension about flying does not have the structure of a phobia. And what we'll be doing tomorrow is perfect for that usually. Now, if someone has actually been in a plane crash or a threatened plane crash or something, the phobia process may work. Phobia process works greatest for something like something where the environment suddenly presents you with something that's of great danger, or appears to be great danger, or almost drowning, or attempted murder or something like that, or a dog, suddenly, a dog is in your face or something like that. An airplane phobia often isn't really what I call a phobia. It's more anxiety. Because, an airplane just doesn't suddenly come around the corner and you're not, I hope you're not suddenly confronted with an airplane. Whereas a dog can come right around the corner, or a snake can come out of under a rock, and there's a sudden jolt of emotion. And with an airplane thing, it starts out slowly. They think about going on a trip, and then they buy their tickets, and then they pack their bags, and then they take the taxi to the airport, and so it builds slowly. It's not one of these instantaneous things. Phobia cure works best for something that's instantaneous. And some people kind of work themselves up gradually, and often an airplane phobia is of that nature.
So with a dog, it's appropriate because you don't want to walk out to every dog on the street and give them
Right.
a big hug and a kiss and not
That's
get their
right.
face cut.
Absolutely not. No. So if someone has been phobic of dogs, they've stayed away from dogs, you want to urge them to be cautious. With an airplane, it doesn't quite fit. Yeah, good question.
So would an airplane anxiety or whatever be very similar to the elevator?
Elevator? No, because that's a sudden one. And see, the airplane builds maybe over a period of weeks. A person contemplates going on a trip, and then they buy their tickets, and then they pack their bags. It may take over a long period of time. So it works up slowly. It's more like stage fright. You think about being up in front of a group of people, and then you start getting wired, and then you go, oh my gosh, I'm wired, and you get more wired, and it kind of builds like that. And it's a little different structure in terms of how we do it internally. So sometimes it'll work. Somebody's actually, in a big snowstorm and the plane is threatened, it goes into through like this and it really you think you're going to die, then it might work.
And I was going to ask that in those
And
situations.
that's more like what you're doing, what you were doing when you talked to me, that you were more anxious about the future. And what we're doing tomorrow is probably going to be more useful to you. Did you get some change from this process?
When I get a real change, I either cry or I laugh hysterically,
Okay.
and my throat gets real tight.
Okay.
But that was good.
Okay.
I felt some change.
Something. Okay, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Okay, any of the questions first? Okay, a couple things I want to mention. One is just to kind of look at this in a slightly different way. There is some actual event, usually in a phobia. Occasionally a phobia is of the future. But if someone gets a very, very vivid image of some kind of disaster in the future, but usually it's some past event in the actual event. Then they have a memory. And if the memory is associated, the person will likely have a phobia. And the cure is dissociation. Now, the actual event, the person probably felt terrible. And now, when they remember it associated, it's as if they're having the same experience again. So again, they feel terrible. And often, as intense as the original event. The dissociation is the resource. When the person learns to remember the memory dissociated, now they can have either a positive feeling or perhaps a neutral feeling. Now, we're using these evaluative kinesthetics as an indication of the usefulness of what we've done. That's all. We're not trying to change these directly. We're going to change them by changing the way the memory is evaluated. And then when it's evaluated dissociated, then the person can have very mild feelings or perhaps none at all. All of us have had nasty experiences. Is there anyone in here who has never had a nasty experience? No. You don't get to live very long and not have some nasty experiences. The question is, how do you remember them? If you remember them associated, then you're going to have all the bad feelings again. If you remember them dissociated, at a distance, small, etc., then you don't have to have a phobia. Some people are phobia immune. They would never get a phobia. They couldn't. You could not give them a phobia. You can scare the crap out of them, but they won't remember it that way. One of the craziest examples of this is if you read the journals of mountain climbers who climb Mount Everest and stuff like that, the journals are filled with misery. Oh, it's so cold, and they're getting frostbite, and then they lose some toes, and they wish they'd never come up on this goddamn mountain because it's just storming so bad, and all this stuff. And they get down, and a week later they're ready to go up again. They just don't remember them associated. If they remembered them associated like I would, they'd never go up again. Now, it works for them. It's okay. I don't object to that, but it's an interesting example. Some people will go on a trip and have a horrible time, and then they come back and they want to go and do it again a few weeks later. I don't like to do that, but hey, okay. As long as it works for the person, it's okay. Okay. Oh, there's one other question. What do you do if somebody can't visualize? Well, the standard answer is pretend. Imagine that you could. And then just go through the whole process. And direct your verbalizations more to the person's unconscious mind. So I want to talk directly to your unconscious mind. I know you have images. I can see you looking up there. You're not aware of them. So I want to talk directly to your unconscious. And then just do the whole thing again. Or the other thing you can do is do it in the auditory system. Have the person listen to a tape recording of themselves freaking out. Instead of watching themselves freak out, I'm doing it on a tape recorder. That's an auditory dissociation. You know, a tape recorder, now they're pretty good, but it used to be they're kind of tinny, or you can tell there's a little echo or something that you can tell that it's a recorded event and not a real event. Because that's the key thing you're doing here, is you're decreasing the reality component of it. Or you could do it kinesthetically. You could reach out and feel yourself over here, feel your chest heaving, and feel all that's going on in the freak out event. But it's not me, it's this other person over here. So that's a kinesthetic dissociation. So you can almost always do all these things in different systems. It's just a matter of thinking about it or kind of having them in your mind. How can I do this in another system? Did you have a question?
Does using words like, when's the last time you really freaked out? I mean, does that sometimes tend to throw them into it more?
I hope so. Well, you want to get a good access, and then you want to interrupt it very quickly. But some people are, very dissociated all the time. The professor, the philosophy, or something like this, is like this all the time, and so on. And those guys can describe a spiral staircase without using their hands. They really can. I've heard it done. And it's bizarre. Because almost everybody, will do something with their hands. But if they're that dissociated, they won't have a phobia. They'll never get one. Okay. Anything else on the phobia cure? We have about 40 minutes. I have an idea of something we can do, but I want to make sure there's no loose ends here.
Somebody wrote a book and it had two buses going in different directions.
Two what?
Two buses, and it was
Oh, yeah.
at the beginning.
Using your brain.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where, but it had this same basic thing in it.
Yes.
Or perhaps the same, but I've been doing it different. But I used to write down on a piece of paper every time I could think of something that I was afraid of, and I would just run both ways, back and forth, and I'd stop and try to put it back together, and I just keep doing that until I couldn't put the fear back together again.
Right.
And it worked very well.
Okay.
So I could do it by driving or whatever I happen to be doing.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
I found it to be effective, and
Yeah.
it only takes a few seconds.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. Why should your clients get all the benefit of your knowledge? Might as well use it with yourself. Okay, anything else on phobia cure? It's written up in this book, Using Your Brain for a Change. The original phobia cure, which is a little different, is written up in Frogs and Princes. It's in a lot of different books. God, there must be 400 books on NLP now. I'll bet at least a third of them have the phobia cure in some form, because it is very useful, getting people over trauma, over difficulties. And most of psychiatry and psychology still has no idea about it. They just don't know it. So they do support groups, and everybody feels bad together. They support each other in feeling bad. I mean, it's really strange. It's really sad sometimes. There was in Boulder there was a phobia support group formed, but it was on the 3rd floor, so the acrophobics couldn't come. It had a room with no windows, so the claustrophobics couldn't come. And they had to get up there by the elevator. So they couldn't come. It was really a joke, but kind of a sad joke. Okay, anything else on phobias? Last chance. I mean, we could always do it later, but I'd rather wrap up now. Okay, I want to go back to something that you guys played with earlier and point out a few things. Would you be able to come up again? Sort of? Please?
Sure.
This was supposedly your decision strategy, right?
Right.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, yes, it is a decision strategy because all your strategies are decision strategies. If you think of computer, it's always this or that. Zeros and ones. There's always forks and you go down one fork or the other. But getting out of bed in the morning is usually motivation. Let me explain what I mean by that. When did she make her decision? When did she make her decision about the list of things to do? The day before.
Yeah.
She pre-decided. She decided ahead of time what she was going to do when she woke up in the morning. So when she hears the alarm clock, she visualizes the alarm clock is auditory external. It's not digital. Digital means words. Does the alarm clock talk to you?
Actually, it does.
Oh, it does. Excuse me. Never mind.
It says wake up, wake up.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. It is auditory digital. I hate those alarm clocks. It's enough for me that it goes buzz. But anyway, excuse me. So it is auditory digital, external. And then she visualizes internally a list, right?
Correct.
Originally this was external here, so I'm changing it's internal. So it's an internal list. And she has in her list, first a list of have-tos. Get the kids to school, get breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And then a want-tos after that, right?
Right.
Right. And then basically you get up instantly, right?
Correct.
And so you must do a little more in here. See, people lie to you. They say, oh yeah, that's all there is to it. Now, you look at the list. Now, if this was a list of stereo components that you could buy at a store, that probably wouldn't get you out of bed, would it?
No.
Okay. So how does this one get you out of bed? You got to read it, right? You can't just see the list.
Well, I wake up knowing what's on the list because I did make it the day before.
Right.
So I know exactly when I have to get up, how long it's going to take me to complete the list.
Right.
So when I wake up, the list is there, I get up, I do the list.
Okay, well maybe it is that fast. So you just see the list, and then that's a good question for asking in terms of you see the list. What gets you up? I mean, just seeing a list. How does that get you up?
Habit.
Well, habit's that's a word for I don't know.
No, habit. I've gotten up at 6 since I was 16.
Right. Okay. I believe it's a habit, but still, it doesn't really answer how you do it. See, some people have habits and it sends them in this direction. Other people have habits, it sends them in another direction. So how come your habit sends you up?
Why does my habit send me up?
Yeah. See, some people, for instance, have a kind of a Gestapo voice and they go, it's time to get up. And they like that, and they feel terrible and they get up. Because if they don't, something else will happen. So how do you do it?
Well, I have kids that depend on me, so I have to get up to get my kids up.
Well, notice these modal operators. Have we got modal operators already? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Sure. Have to and want to. So have to means if you have a really strong have to, that'll get you up. But the question is, what is the form of the have to? Do you say to yourself, I have to get up?
Habit.
Well,
I've had kids for a really long time.
well, I agree. Yeah, and I agree it's habitual. But the question is, what is the habit made of? You know, a cell phone works, and you say, well, it's just habit. It works. But the question is, how does it work? What's the program in there that makes it work? How do you get yourself up out of bed? Let me give you some alternatives.
Okay.
I get up out of bed because I make pictures. I don't have a list. I kind of have a list, but I get up and I go, what am I going to do today? And I see an image of some things I'm going to do, and I go, wow, I want to do those, and I get up. And I get a good feeling, and it pulls me toward them. Now, earlier you talked about push, and usually have to has to do with push. So, it could be I have to get up. It could be just a simple little set of words in there. Some people get up by making images of disaster if they don't. If I don't get a little recognition here. What happens if you don't get to work and you make a picture of your boss snarling at you or handing you a pink slip or something like that? So how do you get up in the morning? Just see, the list isn't enough.
It's enough to get me up. I'm sorry, that's what gets me up. Knowing what I have to do today gets me out of bed because I have so much to do every day.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know that you have so much to do every day? Is it the length of the list? You look at the list and it's real long. Just try this out. Close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're asleep. You hear the alarm go off. You see the list, and it's only got 3 things on it.
Never.
Well, maybe never, but what is it like if you imagine that?
If I imagine it has 3 things on it?
Yeah, and they were all 3 things you wanted to. You're on vacation.
I can't see that.
Okay, so she's congruent. I can't see that. She's shaking her head. So you always have a long list.
I do.
How many things on the list?
Usually 20.
20. Okay, so about 20. What if you only had 10? Just imagine you had 10.
If I only had 10, my kids would probably be elsewhere.
Okay.
It would be summertime.
Is that a possibility?
No. But, I'm imagining.
Yeah, okay. So close your eyes. And imagine you hear the alarm, and it says time to get up, or whatever it says, and you see the list, and there's just 10 things on it instead of 20.
Okay.
You still get up?
I'll still get up.
Okay. How do you get up then? Now you guys are in a better position over there to watch your eye accessing cues. How does she get up?
With a smile.
Well, I see her eyes going down left. So there's some kind of words in there. I don't know what they are. Can you have any sense? Pretend. What if you did know? I mean, it could be as simple as get up.
Yeah, I just tell myself to get up.
Okay. That's a little different than looking at a list. You see, the beauty of this, if I can get exactly what she does, and then I want to teach it to somebody else, I can teach it in a way that doesn't leave any pieces out. Let's say the rest of you wanted to get up right away, and I say, just make a list of 20 things, many of you, that wouldn't work, right? I mean, a lot of you are shaking your head. Yeah, I don't care. Make a list as long as you want. Right? But if we can get enough detail, this is the way you really get to teach people, for instance, how to be really, really good at sports, or really, really good at negotiation, or any skill you want to name. If you can get the details from somebody who does it well and does it quickly, you can teach somebody else how to do exactly what they do. This is this one about, anything can be accomplished by anyone. It's not quite true. I'm not going to be an NBA star, not with my knees and my, vertically challenged altitude here. So let's try this now.
Okay.
So you close your eyes. You hear the alarm clock. What does it say exactly?
Wake up, wake up.
Wake up, wake up. So it's a direct order. It's a command. Now, is it an accident that she chose that?
No.
I don't think so. Probably direct commands like that work real well. And that would be congruent with, it's time, get up. Right?
Right.
Okay. So you see the list. It's got at least 20 things on it. Okay. And you hear get up. And what's after that? You're up. Yeah. I'll bet there's some kind of feeling in there that gets you up.
Urgency.
Urgency, yeah. The sense of urgency.
Yes.
You've heard this all the way along, right? I have many things that have to be done. Have to be done. Okay? And she has her list. The top of the list is have tos. The bottom of the list is want tos. Okay? So you need to have that sense of urgency. And that means that if I were going to install her strategy in somebody else, I would need to say, think of a time when you are really, really urgent, and be ready, and anchor it, on the arm or something like that. And say, okay, I want you to say, get up to yourself in an urgent voice, and then have this feeling to sequence these experiences so that I could teach someone else what she already does. Does that give you a little more of a sense of strategies? Now, this is a motivation strategy, however. This is how to get her up out of bed. The decisions were made yesterday. She put stuff on her list. She pre-decided. And we were talking about going to a restaurant, and she pre-decided that too.
I sound so anal.
So what?
I sound so anal up here.
No. I don't think of that way.
Okay.
I mean, you can if you want to make pictures like that, it's all right. No, I'm very serious. This is, if you want to really get things done, decide ahead of time what you're going to do, hook it up with a good motivation strategy, and then you're up and running. It's wonderful. I'm not criticizing it at all.
Okay.
There is the fact that every skill is also a limitation in some other context. And that's just something to learn so that you can allow for it. But this is wonderful. She can get out of bed instantly. She doesn't have to go talk to herself. Once we elicited a decision strategy of a guy, and it's a funny thing. Sometimes you ask, well, who's good at getting themselves out of bed? And sometimes the people who answer are the ones who take hours to do it. And they are so aware of the whole long process, they think they're really good at it. This guy never got it before noon. The alarm went off at 8 or 9. I didn't get up until noon. It took a long time. So sometimes you have to take people's conscious valuations, with a grain of salt or something. Okay, now this is a motivation strategy, right? It's not in one sense it's a decision strategy in that everything is a decision strategy, but it's really a motivation strategy. She decides ahead of time, and I bet you do a lot of deciding ahead of time. The one example that we didn't quite get to was she's going to a restaurant. She knows it's Chinese. She wants to be safe. She has certain criteria. Chicken is always good at a Chinese restaurant. Am I getting this right? So she's either going to get this chicken or that chicken. That's great. You see, looking at this as a problem?
No one in here is going to want to go to dinner with me.
I like chicken. I'll go to dinner with you. See, I just destroyed your generalization.
True.
Now, this is great. If you decided ahead of time what you want and it's congruent with what your values and what's important to you, why not? I often...
It's easier.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why dither around and think about all the things that you could do when you know ahead of time what you want, and you just program it ahead of time, and then it just fires off at the right time. That's great. A good person in any sport, you don't want to have them thinking, well, let's see, is this a backhand or a forehand? How far do I want to hit that? You want to have it pre-programmed ahead of time. You know, all the different skills, all the different ways of hitting the ball. You want that to be automatic so that when the cue appears, you know. You don't even think about it. Maybe later you think about, well, I could have done something different. But if you think about it ahead of time, you don't have time. It won't work. So there are many, many places in life where this is a wonderful, wonderful skill, and I'm really very serious about this. Now, like any other skill, it has limitations. Can you see any limitations in this?
I tend to be fairly rigid in my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So if something gets thrown at me out of left field,
then freaks you out, huh? Messes up the plan.
messes up my list.
And you also talk about having a long list,
I do.
right? So you don't have much free time.
No.
Now, what if we stuck a few little places in here in your list where it was free time?
Okay.
What would that be like?
Is that at the bottom of the list?
No.
So that's like
Now, I agree, there's certain things that are have-tos. Now, and especially with kids, you need to take care of them. There's certain things, I mean, you wouldn't have to do them, actually, but let's call them have-tos. Okay? But in between the have-tos, after you got them off to school and before you take your first phone call in your business or something, could you open up a little slot there, just a little tiny one? Just a little time for you to sit by yourself, smell the roses, watch the sunlight stream in the window, or something like that. Now, you're an exquisite scheduler, so I know you can do this. The question is, are you willing to? And would that fit with you?
I can do that.
Okay. But how often do you do it?
Not often.
Not often. What would you think of scheduling in a little more free time? To give you a little more ease, a little less stress.
A little less stress.
Just try it out in imagination. Close your eyes. And you've got this list, and this is the day before you wake up. So you're going to make this list, and you're going to put in some little free time slots. Maybe just 5 minutes. Not enough to interfere with your getting done the things that you need to and want to get done. But just a little time for you to sip a cup of coffee or look out the window or do whatever for you would be self-nourishing.
Okay, well, I need to clarify one thing.
Okay.
I do have like 2 days a month, and it's all about me.
Okay.
So
Good.
2 days a month during the week, I don't work,
Okay.
and I do meetings.
And is that enjoyable?
Oh yeah,
Is that refreshing and nourishing and so
Do you
on?
have a schedule that day?
I do.
Schedule of fun things to do. Huh? And that's okay too. That's okay too. If you enjoy doing things that way and you want to make sure you get them done, why not? But how about during the day so that you back off a little bit and Be a little gentler with yourself. What would you think of that? So imagine the day before,
Okay.
and you're building your schedule for tomorrow morning. And you build in, let's say, 2 or 3 little free times for you. What's going on? You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I don't know what those look like.
What?
I don't know what those look like exactly.
Oh, well, you've got those lists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it words like get the kids off to school or something like that?
Right.
Okay, well, there's one free time. You can do whatever
When
you
I'm not
want.
working.
In between.
Okay.
Well, I don't believe you yet.
Well, I'm not quite sure what I would do during a work day
Okay.
that didn't involve work.
Think of
for my
things that
kids.
think of things that you could do that would be nourishing for you. I mean, I can think of a million things. I do this all the time. Think about special times in your life that have been really rewarding, or accomplishments, or just the way the rain falls off the leaves in the morning, or anything like that.
Okay.
Because you're a bit of a workaholic, right?
I am.
See, this is a wonderful skill. All skills are to be used in moderation. Can you give yourself a break?
We need to go to toilet, for example.
I can give myself a
What
break.
did you say?
Restroom, I mean, she will not go
Okay,
to
I go to the
restroom 5
bathroom.
minutes.
I'm sorry.
Restroom, 5 minutes, I mean, this
I
is...
do.
she
Oh, the
can-
restroom.
I do go
Restroom.
to the restaurant.
Yeah, that's wise.
Just 5
And
minutes.
I take personal phone calls sometimes.
Okay.
Okay. But you're still evading the issue. And if you want to, that's okay. But I would highly recommend taking a little time to just cool out, smell the roses, maybe decide, is this particular phone call that I'm going to get at 10 really that important, or should I just say, hey, I'm too busy, or whatever. Because it's easy for any skill to become too much. And there's a need for balance in life. And work is wonderful, and of course there are people who are unbalanced on the other side, who never get up in the morning, and get up at noon or 3 o'clock and never get anything done. And I'm not going for that either, but just a little balance helps you accomplish more. There was a study done some time ago where they studied software engineers, and there was one group that were very creative and able to solve lots of coding problems, and there was another group that they could do standard stuff, but they just weren't very imaginative, and they would get stuck more often. And the only difference they could find between the two was the ones that were creative took a break. They knew how to take a break. It might be just to the water cooler. It might be a day off and go for a hike. It might be anything in between those, or even longer sometimes. But they knew how to take a break, and there's been all kinds of stuff for years about the creative process, that if you let go of a problem for a while, and you let your unconscious deal with it for a while, then you come back and you have a fresh approach or something, and suddenly it's easy to do. And so it can make life easier as well as more enjoyable.
Okay.
Think about it, okay? Is that a deal?
I'll think about it.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. This is part of what is it? People work perfectly. It's like people work perfectly. They work systematically, I think would be a better way of saying it. That, I don't think anything is random. People work in dependable ways, and if you can find out how they work now, if it's great, you can teach that skill to somebody else. If it doesn't work so good, you can find somebody else who does. The phobia cure was determined by studying people who had gotten over phobias. Not by people who were phobic, but people who had been phobic. And if you get more information about phobias, people have a lot of ways of doing them. The gal on my bee phobia video, she had a tape loop that went over and over again. It was like a little videotape that just recycled I didn't ask her how long, but I would guess 3 or 4 minutes. And it was just end to tail, and so it just went over and over and over again. I talked to a gal who had been phobic of spiders, and I said, well, when you were phobic, if you go back to when you were phobic, how big was the spider? And she went like this. And I thought this wasn't the whole story, so I said, and how big are you? And she went like this. So there are lots of ways to do a phobia. Usually they involve some kind of exaggeration like that, some kind of distortion, and it's scary. So you don't need to have that information in order to run the phobia cure, and that's one of the beauties of it, that you can take someone and you don't even have to know what the phobia is. You just run them through the process, and usually it works. But if you know the actual structure, then you can do something else sometimes. You can undo the tape loop so that it goes, well, in the phobia, the one I just said, well, how long does it have to go before you get to the end? I presupposed that after a certain number of repetitions, it would end. And she goes, well, I don't know, half a dozen. And so I said, great, go ahead and do it half a dozen until you get to the end. And she gets to the end, and she's done. So there are lots of ways to do things. Now, back to decision. See, this is all motivation strategy. Tom did this, I think, right?
Yeah.
Tom is a generalizer. He likes to make big generalizations, and that's valuable, and he loves metaphor, and that can be valuable. I'm more of a little bitty chunker, and I want to know exactly what's happening all the way along. So yes, it's a decision strategy in one way, but I would call it a motivation strategy. Decision strategy is when you sit down to decide something. The easiest way to do it is with a menu. Is there anybody who'd like to explore their decision strategy? Real fast. You don't want to do that one. You've had enough. I've been on your case long enough.
No, I have a question.
Okay, question.
She's really great about taking 2 days a month.
Mm-hmm.
What if you made a day look like a month, and she took the equivalent of a couple days out of it? I mean, it's pretty tough for most people to take 2 days out of a month during the middle of the week, but she somehow has there's a strategy there that could be applied to that day.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I choose Wednesdays because maybe I'm not
Then you can get caught up on Thursday and Friday, right?
Well, there's less.
I can see your pictures.
It's easier to get appointments on Wednesdays for certain things, and
Okay. Yeah.
malls are less crowded on Wednesdays.
Absolutely. Why not? Sure.
So I choose Wednesdays.
Once I did shift work,
It is.
and I utilized that. There's certain times of week that you can get in better.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
Okay, somebody over here volunteering?
Yeah, I'll volunteer.
Come on up. Now, would you say you have a good decision strategy or not?
We'll find out.
I was hoping you'd say yes, I have a good decision
yes,
strategy, and then I'd say, how do you know that? Because that's also a decision. Okay, imagine you sit down in a restaurant,
Okay.
and I hand you a menu.
Okay.
How do you decide what to eat?
I start running through everything. And I think I can taste it.
Yeah, probably.
Something hits me that sounds.
Okay, let's slow this down.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. People usually run through their strategies so fast, you have to slow it down in order to get the little pieces. So we know there's a taste in there. That's very good. Some people go only on the visuals. They want to see the food. And that's it. Taste is a good way. I mean, you really want to have taste in there. You can choose a shirt and you don't have to taste it. Really, you don't. Okay, so here's the menu.
Okay.
Read the first item on the menu.
Okay.
And then what do you do?
Then I keep going. That didn't look very good, or taste very good. I couldn't taste it.
Okay, now, how do you go from the words to the taste?
How do I go from the words to the taste? Because then I imagine it.
Yeah, you make a picture.
Yeah, there's a picture.
Okay, great. So you read the first thing on there. You make a picture of it, right?
Okay.
Okay, and it looks like it's a remembered picture.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can use these to remember to construct. And there are advantages to both. And then you imagine tasting it, right?
Yeah.
So you see a picture of it, and then you imagine hamburger or something, and then you can imagine biting into it and
yeah.
tasting it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Okay, so that one's not so good.
That's not.
Okay, then read on down. This is great.
Okay.
This is good. This is wonderful.
And then when it hits me, it just hits me. I get a picture
Of
what I'm going to eat.
Okay, but you're going down the thing.
Yeah.
So how do you know when one hits you?
It's like it's I'm salivating.
Okay. Great. And this gesture toward the mouth, right? So that's a hint. I mean, this is usually some variation of kinesthetic. The gesture is like this, and taste and smell are part of your body sense. So that's also, it's sort of a subdivision of kinesthetic. They're closely related. So this is fine. So you get one that you really like the taste of, and then that's it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Great, wonderful. Now, I'll bet a lot of you do something different. Are you following along? How many of you would insist on reading everything on the menu?
Everything?
Not you.
Not everything?
But some people do, because they have a desperate fear of missing out on something. And there might be something that you're nodding your head, right? Yeah, and it's true. There's an advantage to that one. See, there's advantages to all of these. If you're only using remembered images, for instance, then if you're in a really crummy restaurant, and you're driving from Nevada to Nevada, and you're in a really crummy restaurant, and use a remembered image of a hamburger, you might be out of luck, because what you get might not have anything to do with your remembered image. Now, what do you do if you're in some place like that?
It's kind of a panic. There's kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, that's a place where it's good to make a constructed image of the hamburger you're likely to get in this place, because that might be real different than your remembered images. So sometimes it's valuable to use constructed, sometimes remembered, or you can use both. That's valuable. This thing about not missing out, it's often true. There might be something down at the bottom that would be really special, and you're more efficient. You're faster. I'm with you. Seriously.
Let's get the job done.
I mean, yeah, let's get it done. And it's great. It's fast. You come to something, oh yeah, that'd be good. Boom, do it. And you order. So you're probably not the last person to order in the group,
Usually
right?
not, no.
You're probably
I'm
one of the
usually
first ones.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And that's great. And you might miss out on something that you would get.
Well, then when he said
But
that,
he'll
though,
take longer.
Yeah, but when he says it, usually I'm pretty smart and go, I'll have some of that too.
But what if he's not in your group?
Oh, then I'm in trouble.
Now, here's the thing. The same kind of difference of speed versus completeness can appear in many, many ways. Some people will look at the menu and they'll just go category. They'll decide ahead of time, all I want is a salad, and they'll just do salads. Or I'm cheap. And so I look at the menu and I first go for the price. And I go, well, I don't want any of that stuff. Because I don't want to disappoint myself. Because if I choose a filet mignon and then I look at the price, oh, I can't have it. Oh. And some people do that. They'll read the whole menu, even though they have criteria about price or whatever it is. They'll read through the whole menu. They'll decide what they want. And then they get disappointed because they can't have it. Because it's too expensive or something like that. I don't want to do that to myself. So if you have some preset criteria, like it's got to be a salad or it can't cost more than $10 or whatever it is, if you apply that first, it speeds up the whole process. You go, oh, I'm not going to mess with any of that. And then you just have this to select from. Okay? Question?
Well, I kind of, I see something, I have to check the whole menu, but I can kind of scan it.
Yeah.
But if there's something really expensive,
Yeah.
I actually do a weighing thing so that I don't really disappoint myself because I decide, well, that's just too expensive. I'd rather have the money, so the taste isn't as important. So it's not necessarily disappointing because
Okay,
I
good.
think, I've kept this $10, that makes me happy.
Wonderful.
Or maybe, I'll
Great.
just try it.
See, people are doing all these great things in their brains. And if you know something about strategies, you can figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. So you don't get disappointed because you think, you probably think of what you're going to do with that $10.
Yeah, but if I really, really, really want it and I haven't been just spending my money all over the place,
Yeah,
then
give
I'll get
yourself
it and
a
say,
break.
okay, that $10 is just gone, but this is going to taste really good.
Yeah.
So I just weigh which one is more important at that moment,
Right.
depending on what I've done in the last couple of days. Or
That's wonderful.
What
That's
my budget
wonderful. Sure. Absolutely. Okay. Now, do you have anything else about your decision strategy?
Well, see, sometimes I'll change it though too.
Okay. What do you change to? You have a
Well,
secondary?
I mean, no, what's that?
You have a secondary strategy?
Well, sometimes money is an issue, and
Okay.
so then I'll look at it differently, like you said.
And
See, 'cause
pretty much
somebody's-
like I talked about, to
Yeah.
make a pre-select.
Right.
Yeah. makes sense.
Or if you want to eat healthy, then yeah, you're going to go to salads, you're going to go to stuff that is going to promote that.
Sure.
But then the strategy would still be the same.
It might change. See,
Might visualize
initially
it.
he's talking, that part might stay the same, yes. The visual, taste, feel.
Right.
This is really kind of how you feel about the taste. There's actually another little step in there. Do I like the taste or not? See, the taste is just data about the world. So you imagine a steak, you taste it, I like it. So it's this taste and like it. So if we were to diagram that, it would be visual internal, gustatory taste, and then do I like it or not? Do I like that taste? Okay?
Okay, yeah.
And usually when people are doing taste, they'll lick their lips and they'll move their lips and do things like that.
So then you go back to the beginning if you didn't like it.
Then he would go to something else. Now, this then would be enclosed. So this is the kind of the basic process. And then as a pre-screening, you might have price. Or let's say, you ate a big heavy Chinese meal the night before, so you want to have something more light or something like that. So you might have some other criteria. You have various criteria that you can use as a screening process.
Would you want to include the visual external where he's reading the words or the menu and...
Oh, well, that's true. That's out here. That's visual external. He's reading the menu. Yeah, sure. So it'd only be the sequence in which he does this, or the examples that he puts through this process. So he might discard all the salads or discard all the beef if he's a vegetarian or something like that. Yeah.
I was thinking also different menus would do different things too. If the menu just said steak or like T-bone steak or filet mignon, that's it. That's one thing. But some menus, like they'll get into describing all the different sauces with each dish.
Takes you a little longer.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
And it's more discriminating. If you have a description that's real, that really tells you about it, and isn't just flowery words, with a wonderful aroma, blah, 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 hypnosis. If it actually gives you data about what kind of a steak you're going to get, this is a pepper steak with a lemon sauce with blah, 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 or something. Sure, that gives you more information. That means you can make a more detailed picture. Now, one other thing I want to be sure to throw in here before the end of the day, where do submodalities come into this? Everywhere, specifically.
Color of the food. Color of the food.
Oh, the color?
To
Sure.
The texture.
Well, the submodalities are essentially here in the arrows. That when the taste is good enough, when the picture is clear enough to have a sense of what this is, then you go on to the next step. If I said, I want you to make a picture of Kazinga Lagada, the picture probably is not clear enough for you to go on with your thing.
Yeah.
Well, if you go into a restaurant, and especially if it's an Asian restaurant you're not familiar with or something, you read the stuff and you don't know what it is, right?
Right.
And then you might as well go like that. You can't really decide, right?
That'll make trouble.
So the more the words can describe in detail the kind of picture that you make, and the words, have meaning to you, they're not in Swahili or Navajo or Chinese or something like that, then you can make a good enough picture, then you go on to get a taste. If the taste is good enough to know whether you like it or not, then you go on to the next step. So this is, whenever you hear the word enough, that indicates a threshold. It's full enough. It's big enough. It's rich enough. It's whatever, enough. And submodalities reach a certain threshold of clarity, and then you can move on to the next step in the strategy. Now, there are many, many kinds of strategies. Some are what Bandler used to call junkers. I wrote up in Heart of the Mind, one woman would make decisions of the following. This is my introduction to strategies. I paired up with this woman. And she would sit down at the restaurant and she would hear a voice inside that said, look to hear what other people are ordering. And then another voice would say, no, think for yourself. And then she'd feel bad. And then she went, So she basically went auditory internal, auditory internal polarity, opposite, negative, and then feel bad. And she would loop through this until she felt bad enough. Literally, she really did this. And when she felt bad enough, she would go like this. Because finally one of these voices would say something like, choose anything, it's better than this. Now, some strategies you modify. You just add in another little step or something, or you change a visual construct to visual remembered or something like that. But this is a junker. This one you just throw in the trash and you start over. And some people really... she had been in therapy with a TA therapist for, I think, 1.5 or 2 years, exploring her feelings of dissatisfaction.
Oh my God.
Does that make sense? She's always choosing, not on the basis of her values or her preferences, but just randomly. So of course she's going to have a lot of dissatisfaction in her life. And again, that's working at the wrong level. That's working at the level of the feelings. You want to use feelings as a barometer or a thermometer to let you know when you've made some change that's worthwhile to the person. But you don't want to work with the feelings themselves unless they're this kind of feelings, the tactile feelings or the body sense feelings. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, thanks very much. Anything else? I mean, this is only touching the surface of decision strategies, and it's 5 o'clock, so the bus is going to be here soon. Maybe we could take this up again a little bit, but it seemed to me that wasn't done as thoroughly as it might have been done earlier. And it's one of my favorite topics. If you can make good decisions in life, it'll take you a long, long way. It really will. And there are many, many people who make terrible decisions and don't notice until later. And they go on through life and they keep making bad decisions. This woman who had this one was already married. She went, who should I marry? Look to see what other people are marrying? No. And she went round and round. You're it.
Walking down the street.
Yeah, really. It's how she chose her car. It's how she chose her house. I mean, think about making all your decisions essentially at random. Well, there's a lot of variations on that, but that's enough for today, I guess. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.